it's it's a tough way to finish, in the extent that that everything has been tremendously fun and informative to listen, both in the morning, both from technicalities and from a ton of information, to now the incredible work, and finally, I think to Dana's, we found someone that maybe speaks faster than I do, so we'll go through there. But thank you for the incredible work. It's so revealing always to see someone what everyone else is tinkering with and investigating. So we are basically like sustainability is as we were discussing in the morning. Not and there's something we need to force ourselves and our cities to start following through, as of course almost as a prescription, as an obligation, but it's also an opportunity to far more things, really, for us, as was discussed before, to create a social improvement and equality throughout all. And the lecture that or the slides that I'm going to show is more like to think how to create value through sustainability and through the future that we want to see ourselves living in. I mean, we are 5 offices. The Shenzhen is almost like a few people, but mainly the 4 design offices, where it's New York, Copenhagen, London, and us in Barcelona. We're roughly, our growth curve is a little bit like the CO2 curve. We're currently above 700, 400, 350 in Copenhagen, 150 in London, 250 in New York, and 80 in Barcelona. But I think the real value of us is this cocktail of nationalities that enables actually creative thinking. So everyone's approach on those different fronts, and sometimes that creates also extreme dedication, and it's that creativity that it actually enables us to do things differently. Our process, as I was saying earlier, is one of trial and error. So there's nothing prescribed. We really go through a process of research in the first 3 weeks, and then of trying several schemes until you test one against another and see which one is performing at all multiple levels. So in the end, you do a selection of 3, and in the end, you select the final one that is performing the best. This is clearly that one was Teva. That never happened. And now we have more opportunities here, but this was the reason why we came to the Southern European market, to be able to contribute also in this region, and we work across all scales, so really trying to contribute in all scales. And again, we have a group of engineers, structural engineers and climate engineers in-house, a group of landscapes, because landscape has always been a part of everything we do. Of course, we're a majority a group of architects, but also design at the scale of the product. So it's really this holistic thinking in which we apply our same process of creating value at all different scales. So this was us when we started in 2005 with the mountain, with the 8 house and the expo and an exhibition. By the time we opened New York, again, starting with the most basic form of architecture, always with housing. So West 57 is again a housing, but creating value through structural, through vertical structure, MEP, and all sorts of things that require simplicity. London, so the gradual increment of projects increased as the offices were appearing, and in the end, as I was mentioning before, the architecture looks different because it does perform differently, and we work at the level of community, from the harbor, from harbor baths to parks, at level of energy. This is a waste to energy plant, which you can ski on the roof. At living this social housing in Copenhagen, where you clearly benefit from prefab structures, where you, by thinking of the logic, you create 3.5 meters in your living rooms. So you just got to think a little bit different with the ingredients that you're given. Workplace, this is Google in Mountain View. So again, flexibility shaded by a solar dome. Towers, this is West 57, where the building creates views because it was trying to preserve views also for our same client on the back, towards the Hudson. Culture, this is a museum in Norway, in a sculpture park that is both a bridge because it connects to sculpture park, a museum with 2 sizes of galleries, and a sculpture in itself. And hospitality, which I'll come back to it also in Sweden, gastronomy with Noma. Stadia, this is the Oakland A's, where you can walk on the roof, so rather than being a white elephant in the middle of the city, actually becoming a gift to the city. So again, this idea of social benefit with social opportunities with every single project, and resiliency, the big U that protects Manhattan from the floods while while supporting or enhancing the relationship of the city to the sea, mobility with Hyperloop, and urbanism with Toyota Woven City, and many other things. And I'll come back to many of these, but none of them is undoable without dialogue. Dialogue with the fantastic clients, and 2/3 of our clients are repeat clients precisely because of that, because we nurture a conversation where we really can create transformation together. And ultimately, as I mentioned already a couple of times, the buildings do look different because their performance is tailored to their own environment. Therefore, at a very early stage, when you start assessing, they already hit LEED Golds and Platinums, even without implementing expensive MEP. So it's more like the passive strategies that are in the backbone of the architecture we're creating that creates different architectures and creates performative architectures. So maybe to start with the origin of BIG, nearly 20 years ago, the first project that Bjarke did in Plot was this maritime youth house, where the competition for the project was to remove, or the large part of the budget was to remove the soil contaminated and then do a small little building on top. Rather than doing that, we proposed that instead of wasting the money in moving soil, we would actually cover the soil. And it is that same cover that creates these new opportunities to create shelters for cafes, for the kayaks, and becomes a playful environment where children actually use and create value by using or thinking the budget differently. So this is another form of actually rethinking what we're being given is the mountain, where it was meant to be a parking house owned by the municipality and a home owned by a private developer. Instead, we propose that the parking house would be inclined to enable the homes to face south, the best solar exposure and the best views, meaning that you can ramp all the way up to your floor and everyone has a home with a terrace with incredible views. And what is interesting is that then it scales from the scale of the urban development to the single family house scale of the surroundings. When you go up, you travel in this diagonal lift that is actually a standard product in Switzerland. That was my home, 303. I sold it before I moved to Barcelona. And when you enter, you're actually in this isolation. It's really an oasis, looking into greenery, looking into landscape. And what is fun is also that these are very basic planters below. So this is a story almost about water usage. The plants are all self-sustainable because the bed of the terrace is a sand bed that slows down the water filterage. So meaning that we reuse all that water into creating this Cambodian temple that, yes, is full of spiders, but is also full of nature and joy. So that's just to show that there's opportunities in everything to create self-sustainable systems that actually create, that enhance biodiversity and that creates well-being and biophilia. Then also, one of the first towers that we did, or the first tower that we did, was this project in Shenzhen for the Shenzhen Energy Company. We won the competition because we proposed this. It follows the master plan. It's a very simple building that faces south and north. So towards north, we proposed that the facade would be a zigzag facade, like a pleated dress of Issey Miyake, that towards north is fully glazed, towards south is fully solid. There's no mechanisms, there's no moving parts. It's a strategy of a simple building that is only solid towards south, towards the sun, and glazed towards north. And this enables us to save energy up to 30% of consumption, right? So the 30% energy bill is smaller. The funny part is, and then it enables us to, the same logic enables us to create openings towards the sky lobby, or plazas below as the building recedes, or entrances for the lobby, almost like a curtain opening up. And when you arrive, yes, from one side, you see the solid panels. From the other side, you see the views. The same thing in the offices. So it creates the perfect performative tower, passive tower on a tropical climate, where towards solid towards south is solid and north is glazed. And so what makes the building perform beautifully is also what makes it look beautiful, right? And so in that extent, it became a transformative tool also in the thinking of larger scale projects. And that same knowledge, almost as a different level, was what we were discussing when we started discussing the offices of the future with Google in Mountain View. where this is the building finished last year. Every single square meter of the roofscape is solar harvesting. And when you enter inside, it is pretty much designed from the single worker and creating a platform that enables change, because they don't know what next month or next year, how they will organize and which clusters will they need to be researching on. So it's just a cover of working environments above with amenities below, and the lower space is completely public. So in the end, you have almost like this circus tent that is catenary to minimize the structural impact and the materiality, and below everything is flexible of change. So these are the spaces that you have, render and reality from the exterior and the interior. This is Bjarke on top of the PV shingles. These are PV shingles that we've also developed with a company that now is offsetting them and selling them, where they're scales, but they all harvest energy and enable you then to do all sorts of different things. And of course, there's water drainage as well as it harvests energy. And the same logic in a different thing, in a different constellation, was what we've done for Sevilla, as I was talking before. This is the future home for the Joint Research Center in Sevilla. Looking at the human scale level, is transparent, is shaded, is almost like a light canopy that protects the building that is underneath. And in the front, you have this plaza populated by these colonnades of trees and colonnades of columns. And on the back, you have a garden for the users, for the JRC community. And it all started, as I was saying earlier, by analyzing what Sevilla is like. It is already these colonnades, these vernacular colonnades, these contemporary colonnades, these natural colonnades, and these shading elements. So it is the mixing and mingling of nature and man-made solutions to provide shade. So in a way, the building does that same, uses that same DNA, as the same DNA in the backbone, and we've done that by completing the entire site by actually harvesting in its totality the sunlight. So here you see also what it does is that the canopy that protects the public realm is the canopy that protects a very simple building. The architecture is extremely simple. And precisely as I was mentioning before, because it doesn't cast direct sunlight, it enables us to have more glass. It enables us to consume less artificial energy because you're using daylight. Also operable windows. I mean, all the basic systems of strategies. Water collection also in the pergolas, not only sun, but water. And all of that reusage of gray water into the gardens in the front and in the back. So all of this is a collection of passive strategies that, again, enable the building to have a very contained performance and a very high energetic harvesting. And that brings us to that 50 plus extra energy that is going back to the city. And so if all projects think that they need to produce a surplus, not just to break it even, but to actually contribute, our conversation about energy supply would be a completely different one, or energy demands and necessities. So when you enter in the future, you'll be able to park your bike, so promoting soft mobility when you enter in the lobby. You'll also have almost like not a vertical void, but a diagonal void, where you can actually see your friend and your neighbor downstairs and meet in the space next to it. So it actually promotes vertical congregation, what otherwise would be a segregated community. So you see your colleague one or two floors below and or above, and you might be able to take the stairs. And in this transition is also where you have the hangout spaces, but the office space again is flexible. So the future of the spaces is flexible spaces, is providing actually a canvas for transformation. And then on each side, the building really does this stepping because it follows the canopy, creates terraces on both ends with incredible views towards the city. So it's this added value or addition of opportunities in all different fronts that by just opposing the canopy with the logic of the building creates this new set of opportunities. This is the picture that I mentioned earlier of Ursula sharing it with the Pope. And then, of course, near Lechem, which is an Israeli architect that came from Moshe, that Moshe told him, if you're leaving me, Moshe Tzur, if you're leaving me, you should join BIG in Barcelona. So he did. And Nir was working on JRC in the competition, and he's now running the project on JRC. So he's trying to learn Spanish. But he did this collage at the time, because apparently everyone was offering our render to everybody else. So it is like everyone, it was so pleasant, that image, that everyone was giving it to everybody else. On campus, I think the logic of solar shading and comfortable communities came by this campus for education and sports that we're doing in CDO, which is a lot in Cyprus, which is a renovation of an old stadium and a new area for an athletics club, and the addition of program. So again, a little bit like akin to what we're doing in Southern Europe all across, or in the Mediterranean area. Cyprus is extremely warm. So what we created is actually this constellation of programs that are spread throughout the campus, that connects the more urban area to the more like park-like area. On one side, there's the highway, so clearly people will arrive to the stadiums from two ends, or walking through the existing, almost like thin water line, but that creates greenery. And then there's the creation of schools focused on sports. So there's a component of education, and a large component of well-being, different types of sports. So if you're focused on training, you can grow there, learning on all fronts. But below, you create almost like a campus that is constantly shaded. And these canopies create our 80,000 square meters of PVs. What the entire campus needs to run is only 16. So 20,000% is again extra that will produce energy to the entire community. And at the very center, you have this entirely shaded space that at some point becomes indoors. That also becomes a retail opportunity. Again, it is a stadium for the public, so it's open from everywhere else. So this is a renovation again of a stadium. The schools also create a series of different opportunities, again connected with this idea of living in a campus. Also the same thing with the pool. So each program explores that principle of the architecture in a different manner. And then there's an ice rink that is also capable of doing different things. And the stadium, you can actually access three-dimensionally all the way to the top, so you can walk all the way to the top. So even with the ice rink and with the pool, there's 20,000 square meters of additional PV supplied energy. So at the ground, you see this walkway, and above, it's completely shaded. Then to bring back to Farfetch, which is kind of like an evolution from what Teva once was. This is half of the campus is for Farfetch, half of the campus is for Castro. It's two different clients, and the three central buildings will be for the foundation of Zeneps. And it is a campus that sits again at the edge of infrastructure, of a large highway, and nature. This is the Lesser River, was once the most polluted river in Portugal, that is now completely recovered. So the building, what it does is that it balances its own square meters rather than being a flat 4 stories. On the side of the highway, it raises to being the double, and on the side of the river, it decreases to be the human scale, so that you can walk up, meaning that protects sound from the highway and then enhances the relationship with the river. So when you walk through, when you go down the central street, you see all the way down to the river as the buildings decrease scale. You start having plazas that are larger, cut underneath so that you connect to the next plazas that are smaller. Again, the building works as many buildings, but it also works as one building because they're all connected as one single office space for different areas in different departments. The ground level, all plazas are connected by these gates, structural gates that are new art opportunities. We're inviting several different artists to experiment and to do things. And above, of course, the roofscape is all one continuous. So you have constant daylight, you have constant connectivity, and constant exposure to your colleagues. And as you arrive to the riverfront, where the buildings are smaller, you also have a new set of opportunities where informal auditoriums will also protect you from extreme rainfall, as now just happened this winter in Portugal. But it also creates this all new set of opportunities and relationships with nature. Again, Similar to JRC, we explore often this idea of this traveling void that really promotes and results as connectivity throughout the vertical building. Above all these moments where it meets the inclined roof, you have these opportunities for new types of mezzanines, and when you arrive on the very top, you can exit the building again. So you can enter and exit the building either from below or from above. So the middle space is just a connection in between a park experience or an urban experience. And above you have each building has these terraces that oversees out into nature. So you can actually run all the way up. And at the riverfront you have a different set of amenities, from auditoriums to canteens to kindergartens and well-being. And in the end, the art gates are just a setup for whoever wants to, or whatever artists want to experiment. I think ultimately, if you look at sustainability, the further you look into not buildings but campuses, you're looking into a toolkit of ecosystems. It's not going to be just BVs, it's not going to be just A or B. It is really a system of synergies that need to feed into one another. So what we've done, and once we were looking into passive strategies, you realize that actually the south summer breezes, or the summer breeze from south, we started working on them to be perfectly aligned with the gates, meaning that you have the summer breezes breathing into the actual all the plazas onto the back, and the north wind was protected from. We have the nortada, which is the cold wind in the winter, that is completely protected, so we don't have gates on the north parts. So in a way, it creates also these microclimates that are beneficial for different phases of the year. And then within, of course, the campus has a series of different strategies, from, of course, PVs to the facade, cross-ventilation, green roofs, water collection, thermal mass, and all sorts of also Canadian wells and bio-waste, so that actually harvest the cooling from the river into the building itself. So in the end, the sustainability is a sum of different parts, both from the energy reduction provided by the Canadian wells, from the chillers efficiencies, from all sorts of green roofs and facade systems, naturally ventilation and controlled environments, and also like energy reduction, on all sorts of other systems that in the end, and of course the south exposure being protected by your biomass and by the greenery, and in the end, all of it is a sum of all parts that enable you to consume 60% less of energy. So it is trial and error, it is bit by bit. There isn't one overarching solution every time. It is a discovery on how you hit the most efficient target that you can. And on that same campus, the building for the Geneve's Foundation evolved into a new set of opportunities. We messed up with our own master plan, clearly. It became this triangle because it created a new set of opportunities in the plazas. So when you see from the riverfront, it is still the same DNA. When you look at it also from the streetscape, it is still the same campus. And when you arrive, it is really transparent and protected to and from the master plan. At the beginning, it was these 3 volumes, but that we converted that central element into the lobby of the building, and it created these new plazas with new opportunities. And the entire thing is a repetition of the same the ideal CLT module and spans. So it's really looking into the spans of wood and creating almost like this Cartesian grid that is just like removed with decks. You remove the decks as you create different kinds of spaces. So again, future-proofing. You can, in the future, if you have more necessities for GFA, you close the building, you close the decks, or you open the decks, and this enables you to have all sorts of different evolutions and phases in the building life. This is like it is for all sorts of different educations and experimentation, from little ones to grown-up ones. But again, you have these 3-dimensional spaces with this Cartesian grid that is just based on the most pragmatic structural array, always with sunlight and daylight in the building. And as you go up, then you have the opportunity also to come out and to enjoy the sequence of terraces where only the central space is walkable and the rest is actually PVs. Also in Zurich, in cross-laminated timber in CLT. We just won this competition for the extension of Zurich Airport, where it's just it's also a triangle with a tail, but where the building opens up to incorporate the tower itself. And so it's a very simple building where it creates this central space for simple connectivity and circulation, where the tower emerges and erupts through the glass. But the rest, the entire materiality, is one very simple. The tectonics are the ones of wood, and is really understanding what that entails and work from those principles on. So you start seeing here the gates areas, the different sections of the building throughout the different length, and the different spaces and opportunities and connectivity throughout the different three-dimensional spaces. And then also in wood, in CLT, like we just finished this factory in the northern, this furniture factory in the northern of in Norway, where I mean typically infrastructure and industry has all these connotations, and what we've been discussing here is also like how can you actually create an icon for visitation, an icon for social engagement while being productive and positive. So Vestre is a combination of different needs for programmatic needs for the factory, warehouse, the coloring and the wood factory and the assemblage, and then of course a part of exhibition. So all of this is connected, is created in one of each branches, and in the center you have the logistic roundabout and the exhibition at the very heart. And in the end, again, all the vegetation, as I will show, that was removed from the ground is replanted on the very roof. So these were the renders, and this is currently what we are already. This is pictures of the existing factory already working, and the coloring works as for the automated machines to follow, and also to discriminate the different assemblage lines throughout the entire thing. But again, you're in the middle of the forest in a mass timber building, and again articulated throughout all the different productions. So it really becomes a didactic space, and also a space where everyone can come and visit and walk through. But again, the architecture is very, very simple. And there was all this effort in the beginning in the footprint of the building to actually remove all the existing species and to replant them on the roof. So again, it's a zero footprint and harmless intervention where it creates a new type of industry, one with a zero footprint. This is the first factory that produces no offset of energy and operations. So here you have now all the reused greenery and the floor plan of the fully immersed in the woods plus. Also in Sweden, almost like opposite scale, we've done this one bedroom. So we're talking about like reusing species. Here we're talking about capturing species. So one of the main thing with this bedroom at the Tree Hotel, these are 34 square meters. It's a wooden structure with wooden boxes. But here the thing is like the Tree Hotel, this was the 8th room. And the other rooms are incredible interventions. You have Tam Videgård's mirror cube, I don't know if someone knows. You have a very unique and incredible interventions of integration in the woods. So we're really wondering how could we contribute after so many great things have been done. And what we've realized is that in Sweden, because of deforestation, the birds have moved out. So we evaluated and analyzed what were the species and what were the seasons in which they were coming. And we created a toolkit of bird boxes adapted to those sizes, to those specific birds, in different amounts, depending on the amount of birds that come. Of course, we didn't put the owls next to some other birds because one eats the other one. But in the end, it becomes also like 350 bird boxes, which in the bottom we have bats, and on top we have also bees. So it's really about capturing. When I slept there for the first time, there was already one bird. I was the first human being sleeping there, but definitely not the first being. And now it's actually populated with birds all around. So it actually works as a call out for the surrounding biodiversity. And in the end, the inner cube for human living has each corner either solid or glazed. And when you look inside, there's a double height space for the living, where you look down and into the corners, and above there is, of course, the wet areas with the toilet and the sauna, and above the bedroom. So when you enter, again, accessibility is a must, so you enter straight in, if you can enter on a wheelchair. And then this was the opening with Kent. So Kent retired right after he finished his 8 buildings, like, no more. He sold the 3 hotel, great move. But I was the first one sleeping there, and it's always a pleasure to finish construction and helping them out, especially on this last beat right before the opening. But when you enter, you have this 6 meters down opening to below. You have this double height space to above. And again, the construction of the building, the majority is also wood and burned wood cladded. And of course, again, so it's really thinking of how can you create value with this. And as you were mentioning, the showers. So I'm even not mentioning this, but of course, you see no sewages, you see no water. The toilet is a toilet produced in Malmö, in the south of Sweden, where it burns into ashes. So you just deposit the ashes into the plants. So there's no system of sewage. The water is all reused. Again, the shower is recycled and reused in the same thing. So it's a self-sustainable ecosystem of usage and engagement with nature. And I think that's the fun part of it. But again, just to mention also on the opposite end, our headquarters. So this is the building that we're going to be moving into in October. This was a picture of a few months ago. But again, all of these load-bearing beams are the structure of the building, which otherwise would have to be far bigger if you would have wooden columns everywhere. Again, it's future SEM, a 30% less consumption of concrete. This is the only column that exists. There is 3 different types of stone, from the most dense Norwegian stone to the most less dense stone. So it's stones from different regions, and everything else is the walls that are load-bearing. And in the end, you have this constant rotating double to triple height space where you can see your colleagues all the way to the last floor. You have this is inclined because you have the egress stairs and plants and balconies outside. As you go down, this is how you see your different colleagues above and below. This is Sheila, our CEO, 3D scanned, and in all our renders. And this is your exit out with the gardens, etc. And in the end, this is what you'll see very soon. But just to say, like, each material is adapted to each performance and each program. So we always got to think critically and not just either wood wash or greenwash. Actually, everything needs to be purposeful and tailored to the best performance and the best outcome possible in all spectrums, from ecological to social to economical. So everything is not one solution, is really a compilation of solutions. And again, this was what also was interesting to see, is that, I mean, comparing the embodied CO2 versus the operational CO2 of the building, seeing that the operational impact was very reduced. And then when you start seeing all of the footprint, I mean, actually you start seeing that the concrete of the exterior walls is not such a big impact, and the overall numbers actually puts the building below the maximum standards in Denmark, which now all buildings need to be following up. So it's actually quite interesting to show that you can do things and things differently without the prescribed narrative, contemporary narrative for sustainability. I mean, I think one of the points we talked about waste to energy earlier on. Also, one of the first projects of BIG was the waste to energy plant in Copenhagen, where it was for the first time the technology. Again, all the energy in Copenhagen is coming from the majority from burning waste, and the technology was at the time the first time it produced no toxins. Yes, I'll speed up. I'll speak at your speed. So what we propose is, like, how can the architecture manifest that same experience, because it doesn't harm the population, doesn't harm the birds. So we propose to do a park on the very top, but we also realized that the building was so big that it was the same scale of the ski slope on the southern of Sweden, where Danes go and ski. So of course we propose the ski slope on the very top. Here we start seeing the burn of 3 kilos of energy gives 5 hours of electricity or 5 hours of heating. So we actually converted this possibility of converting mountains of trash to mountains of snow is fantastic. Of course, also it doesn't snow many times throughout the year. So we propose these alpine skiers in the summer, they train on these green peaks where greenery can also grow through. So we propose that, but we developed a pattern that it doesn't create the dilatation joints. So we also got that development and that. So now when you ski, you don't fall. It's a continuous green roof. You actually ski on grass. Now it's even more grassy than it is. So you can ski all year round, or even in your bathing shorts if you don't fall and burn yourself. And in the end, because the height is so big, we also propose the tallest climbing mountain in the world. So if you have the physiques for it, be my guest. This guy clearly does. But inside, when you go up, you also ski down, and when you go up, the elevator is glass. So you can actually see the laboratory inside, and you can see the mechanics of everything as you pick up your skis and walk up and restart again. So it's also learning is a toolkit for society. And on the very top, you can always, if you don't have your skis, you can always go up. There's a bar, and you can have the best viewing point in the city. So again, if the mermaid is the Danish landmark, hopefully that one becomes a future hedonistic landmark of social sustainability. And just to talk on the two last things at a broader scale, because when we talk, we discuss always about the architecture, because that's what we're trained mostly to do. But we also need to think of cities and buildings and infrastructure and parks. So the project for the 10 miles protection of Manhattan emerged from the Hurricane Sandy that pretty much wiped out half of Manhattan and made it all dark. And what we've proposed is actually, and the reason for this is because the cities have been gaining territory from the seas. So now what we're exposed to with the climate change is really that the sea is almost regaining or recapturing or aiming to get back at it. And typically these are the structures. Yes, here we see Merkel back in the dawn of the decade. But where the solution is barriers that yes protect the city, but also they cut the relationship of the city with the sea. And we learned from the High Line that you can actually reinvent and repurpose infrastructure for the common good, for a social benefit. So we proposed, what if we could actually merge both? We're designing infrastructure from scratch, we talk to the different population, and we actually discuss different scenarios that rather than having a wall, you can actually have all sorts of different opportunities. So it becomes more of a pleasureful toolkit of scenarios where, yes, sometimes the barrier is a pathway and a meandering a situation where it plays with the topography and with species, but it protects the space behind. Other times it becomes harbor paths with different heights that still protect the barrier. Other times, okay, it is a gate, but it's also a Sistine Chapel for public art, for street art that can be closed in different moments. Everything is an opportunity to actually expose and protect the city, but also create a relationship and enhance the relationship of the city with the sea. And again, this has been a process of 10 years of talking with each neighborhood to understand what they wanted to see. And we redesigned each park so that they had their own programs. So again, public discussion, 1 minute. And the last project is actually at the scale of the master plan, because mobility is something that we discussed last year, is something that is fundamental, is something that revisiting the Toyota's former grounds of production into their new R&D center. We looked into all the programs that they had. We looked, of course, into the ecosystem and how to build a sustainable ecosystem through it. And the scale is such that we looked into mobility from pedestrians to recreational and to vehicles, and created almost like the super islands in Barcelona where you have segmented mobility. And that created, either from the city block to central plazas, into public courtyards. So you can actually have this scale-up scenario where even the plazas can become central plazas or central parks. So this is a very simple logic of mobility that drives a new type of thinking. So in a way, all the future R&D center of Toyota will be wooden-based, of course, with Japanese joinery. Some streets will be completely automated. Other streets will be more hybrid, and others full pedestrian. So in the end, I think it's just thinking sometimes the basic toolkits of architecture, of social intervention, of mobility, of performance, and really think how we can create a better future with all the ingredients jammed up together. Thank you. תודה רבה.